are you and what do you really do?
Hi, my name is Ryan Martin. I'm a principal analyst at ABI Research. I lead our enterprise IoT, industrial, and healthcare research. Previously, I led augmented reality, mixed reality, and wearable tech. And throughout my career as an analyst, I've always been covering IoT. We just used to call it something different.
Mixed reality sounds like exactly the right conversation to have here. So go ahead.
Thanks, Carl. My name's Adam Tilow. I'm with Woodside Capital Partners. We're a boutique investment bank based in Palo Alto, and I work a lot in the Internet of Things, specializing in mergers and acquisitions.
My name's Glaser. I'm with Harbor Research. We're a strategy and consulting and research firm based in Boulder, Colorado. We've been studying the space for the last 15 years and mainly work with product manufacturers to help them develop new smart services and strategies for connected equipment.
Steve Brumer, partner at a company called 151 Advisors. We are an international strategy advisory firm that focuses on commercialization and monetization in the IoT and connected world. For us, it's all about the idea that we all have great products, services, and applications that we want to sell. We want to figure out how to make money doing it, and so that's where our focus is within the industry.
Great. Akshay Sharma. I'm a principal analyst with NextCurve. It's a new boutique analyst firm in the IoT space and 5G space. I used to be the Gartner analyst for a decade before joining NextCurve.
And I'm James Brehm. I'm founder and chief technology evangelist of James Brehm and Associates. We've got 7 members covering various segments of the IoT space. I've been covering the space for about 15 years. Also have been the co-chair of this conference with Carl for, I don't know, what, 6, 7 years, something like that, Carl?
Yeah, 7. Okay, so this is very interactive. I will come down to you guys if you actually have questions. I will also make it so these guys are always engaged with simple questions, so let's start with the simplest question first. Show me the money. Where's the money these days? Who's making IoT really work? And why don't we go in reverse order this time? And James will start us off, and then we'll go this way. Is that okay, James, or do you want me to go in the middle first?
Who's making IoT work? Well, a lot of the money is being still made in the very basic areas of track and trace and fleet management solutions. There's a lot of mom and pop shops out there that have several thousand connections that make $20 ARPUs work and are very happy doing that, being rolled up by the big guys. The big guys are bringing in, when I say the big guy, the carriers, tier 1 North American carriers and global carriers are probably starting to hit that $1 billion revenue mark, but they're probably spending all of that in marketing and product investment and management. So are they making revenue? Yeah. Are they making profit? Nah. I don't know. Akshay?
I concur with James. In terms of profit, I would say it's the event organizers and the analyst firms.
Investment bankers too, right?
And investment bankers.
Hey, there's some of us that are doing okay.
For those who don't know, just a quick digression. I used to run a show called Vaughn for a guy named Jeff Pulver. And Akshay would always come over to me and say, you know what this show stands for, right? And I said, voice on the net. He said, oh, vendors on the net. So he's always making fun of me. So with that said, yes. Steve, you want to take over here?
Are you done?
Well, to add to it, of course, the chip vendors, IoT's everywhere. So, of course, Intel and Telit and others, and Renesas that we heard about yesterday as well.
I think James is right on the vertical market segmentation. I think there's specific vertical markets that are doing very well and continue to do very well. 24 years of machine to machine for me, and I think I go back to the first Coke machine and the first truck that we tracked in the 90s, and it's the same stuff today. But I will go with the profit, and where is the profit money? And it's not in the cost of the airtime. If there are any airtime carriers in here, it's a race to zero. Yep. And that's going to be a harder and harder thing to do. So if you look at the future money, I'm going to add that to the rest of the panel. It's got to be, someone's got to put all this stuff together. This is still hard. And we are mostly vendors in this industry, and we all understand that it takes a lot of us together to get a successful deployment. And so I truly believe that we have a systems integration issue that has to get addressed, as well as an education issue. We have to educate not only ourselves on how we all work together nicely in the sandbox, but we also have to educate our clients, the customers. We also educate kids. I've been touring around, going to colleges, trying to educate them on IoT, because what their definition of IoT is a little different than what ours is and what we see in the industry. And our kids these kids in college are going to be the ones that are going to be doing the data analytics. They're going to be doing the AI and the machine learning, and they have to understand what we have to go through in selling. So I think that's where the money is long term.
Okay.
Great. So I think when I look at different profit centers, one area for us is product manufacturers. So you see people like Hitachi Vantara coming out and providing services over the top of their products. You see people like GE Digital trying to shift to APM and trying to provide services there. That's one area. The other area that comes to mind when you think about people actually making money is like Amazon and Microsoft. So when you look at Microsoft with Azure, they've obviously had the 90s Windows embedded. They come from a history of manufacturing, but they've now pivoted into other venues and verticals like transportation and retail. And so they're starting to focus their sales into these areas, and they're creating a lot of revenue due to the fact that a lot of companies are all obsessed with data. So they all want to store their data in these clouds, and now they're trying to drive new services over the top of that.
Okay.
I agree. I think that if you think about IoT as a whole, like on the Gartner hype curve, we were here around 2015, we've kind of hit the trough, and now we're starting to see the ROI in IoT. And it's all fueled around big data. Where's the big data going? And it's getting more expensive to set it up to the cloud. So it's creating the edge computing sort of environment that's really driving a lot of these sort of sectors.
Okay. Ryan, anything else? Adam scared the crap out of me. He said, "I agree." I thought that's all I was going to say.
I don't agree.
Come
I
on.
don't agree. No one's making money on data today. I don't think they are. They will. They're going to make a ton of
We're
money.
at the start of the...
They will. Data's super important. The shit that's happening right now is in focus, from proprietary technology to proprietary data. I think I might have said something similar last year, and I'll echo something else, which is around downtime interruption insurance, around service optimization, service guarantees. What that says is that right now the focus is on addressing issues at company cost centers. And that's why a lot of what we talk about is not necessarily net new, but it is making an impact. It's just tough for us to quantify today exactly how much new revenue that is, because I think that new part is what is going to be the focus moving forward. And I think a lot of the money that's going to be made is going to be made not by us, it's going to be made by the software that we create.
Go ahead, James.
I learned an interesting fact in a meeting yesterday. That is, you spell bubble in Russian the same way that you spell bottle of vodka. And believe it or not. So if you think we're not in a bubble right now on this stuff, no, and I agree with Ryan, no one's making money off of data yet.
Right.
GE's spending a ton of money trying to figure out how to make money off of data.
Three times they try with Predix.
Absolutely. Billions of dollars. Just throwing it away. They might as well just burn it to get propulsion out of their jets instead of trying to figure out how to monetize that stuff out of there. But seriously, if you're not thinking we're in a bubble right now and 700 plus platform companies need to go away, and there's over 100 and there's over 150 fleet management companies that have over 1,000 connections on them right now, need to start being rolled up. Just get drunk.
Okay, Steve?
I think it's interesting you say that, because I do believe that we're going to start to see in this year and going into next year a consolidation within the industry. And whether it is roll-ups of companies that have 1,000 or less activations in some way, shape, or form, or they're realizing that my platform is no different than any of the other ones. So I do think that we are looking at a year of transition where we are going to start to squish together companies that actually have some continuity and some ideas of being able to go to market together better than they can beating themselves up within that specific vertical market.
And you said we're up to 700?
Yeah.
So we counted 720 through the holidays. We actually took a look at this thing and got to that number. And then I go out to CES, And I was sitting in Vivint's booth on the top floor of their booth and overlooking, found 15 different platforms I'd never seen before.
Yeah, right. I know,
Right.
I
It's
walked
just
around
crazy.
there, same thing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So speaking about being squished in the middle, Akshay?
Sure. Man in the middle.
It's your first time.
We saw this at Vaughan too, right?
Yeah.
Way back. Voice over IP. We had H.323. We had different platforms. We had different protocols. Now we've got, ULE created. We've got all these newer protocols to manage the sessions. I just heard about, ThingSpace yesterday from Verizon, and they've created, a network management diagnostics protocol for device management. And so we're starting to see, and then of course all the different LoRa, LPWAN, and all these other air interfaces. But we saw this before, and eventually there's consolidation. I mean, maybe at this show I learned yesterday, Sigfox, we can declare it dead. So,
Oh, jeez. Was that an analyst talking?
Yeah, boy, yes. For some observations may not be politically correct while we're at this meeting, but what the hell? We're not recording
There's some
anyway.
people squirming.
Yes, some of us are. It's not that in Europe, but I
or
can
in
understand-
France, in France.
In France, there are other places too.
Well, Carl, it's not just IoT platforms that are oversaturated. A lot of these, subsectors within IoT are getting, a lot of attention. There's a lot of companies with, IoT platforms, IoT security, predictive analytics. And a lot of these companies have received their A round, and, will they get, the POCs that they need in the customer traction, or will they get to that B round? And I think we'll have a lot of that fizzle out naturally, as we do with all industries. But it's not just IoT platforms that are getting, that are oversaturated.
Can I just add one point? Yeah, I mean, if I'm an end customer looking back at this space, how the hell am I supposed to know the difference between Foghorn and Iodium and the next one, right? So going back to Ryan's point, if I don't focus on the challenges that I'm trying to solve in my business, and a lot of times companies can't align the technology capabilities and the challenges to understand how that would work because it's all the same messaging of efficiency and data and this and that. How do we actually move beyond this fragmentation to actually solve the business problems to drive the revenues?
But I got a question. Has the problem, and some of us have been in machine-to-machine for a long time, has the problem changed in the last 10 years as to what customers' problem? Has the problems changed at all?
I think that through technology, you're able to address more problems. So I don't think that the problems have changed around trying to lower my costs and increase my revenue. I think that's fundamentals. I think that'll always be there. I think what's changed is how cheap it is to use cloud services, how cheap it is to connect something. Now that I can do that, I can start thinking about much more in my operations than I ever could have before.
The customer's changed.
Say again?
The customer's changed. It's different.
That's fair.
Different parties, different companies are getting behind this IoT thing. And I guess we can just stick with the same three letters. Why not? IoT, IT, OT. We talk about these things a lot. We talk about IT, OT convergence a lot, and we don't need to dig in too much here. But the fact is that's a problem statement. When we talk about convergence, IT, OT convergence, it's a challenge. We talk about butting heads. Really what we're talking about is integration, collaboration. It's as simple as communicating functional requirements, what it is that you're using, where the breakdown occurs. We talk about things like security. And it's when brought-in technologies get built in, bolted on to process, not just at your plant, but across the organization globally, bigger problems occur beyond just security. We're talking about vendor lock-in, things that affect the entire procurement supply chain. Like there's a really big ripple effect when there's that lack of communication. And again, it's just as simple as educating on the language between IT and OT.
I'm going to take issue with this, Ryan. This is
Cool.
I'm going to take us down a thread too. So I've been getting a lot of requests for me to interview people on the IT side, mostly because no one's actually talking about them anymore. So the thing that I'm hearing a lot about is third-party management on hardware, the cloud, obviously outsourcing continually. I've got 8 million different companies wanting me to talk about them about that. I've got the gig economy stuff going on, and now I take it over to IoT, and some of this is for a lot of companies so simple to do internally that I question whether or not they really want to go outside with these, number one. And then number two is, if I turn I always think that Internet of Things eventually is Internet of Services. So it's my services that I'm going to try to integrate or I'm going to try to upgrade. So the person who's got the most at stake is the company who's actually taking the things and trying to turn it into a service. So now that I've made this
Carl,
long,
if it
elaborate
was meant to
statement-
be Internet of Services, it would be called Internet of Services. It's about the end thing. People are making things.
I don't buy that.
I
But,
don't-
okay. Well, do you guys buy that? Is
No, I don't
Is this thing or services? What are we doing here?
I mean, when I use Uber, I'm not using Joe's car, because I want to connect his thing. I just want to ride. I want the service. Or when I'm thinking about a wind turbine, I'm trying to understand how I'm going to save dollars or how am I going to create new revenues. I get that it comes from the data from the thing, but the next phase to me is about smart services.
By the way,
But
you
if you're
stepped on a
connecting
landmine
if
because
you're GE and you're connecting that turbine
Yeah.
to get to that data piece,
Yeah.
you got to connect the thing first.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And they can't even get the ingestion engine on their stuff
Of
to work.
course.
So they have to go out and use somebody else to do that because they can't connect the thing.
But-
Connecting the thing is incredibly difficult. Somebody called Sigfox dead, right? Right? Sigfox is a network and they haven't even built the things yet, right? It's not even in there. It's about the thing.
Okay, so you stepped on a landmine, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah, it's fine.
James and I always have a fight over whether or not Uber
Is a service.
is part of IoT at all. So, and by the way, he's not alone. The people who are in Gartner now who remain anonymous for their safety and protection always used to yell at me going, we're not measuring Uber, we're measuring things, right? So,
I think we voted here at the conference once, Carl. You asked all the analysts if Uber was
Right.
IoT or not. What was the answer?
I think I lost. I think that's what happened. So just now I'm going to try one more time. Audience, is Uber an Internet of Things? Raise your hand. Oh, damn.
It's a business.
I lost again.
It's a business model enabled by the internet.
Collaborative economics.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's the lines incentives.
Okay, so back to the try of the question here. If you're the head of an IT organization, okay, or more importantly, if you're an ops guy, are you outsourcing this stuff? Are you insourcing it? How do you make the requirements work for you that you're getting past the proof of concept and into some scalable solutions?
If it's me,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna go. If it's me, I'm gonna get maybe a couple Alexas, share with my colleagues, and have them start onboarding devices with their voice. That's what's really cool about a lot of this stuff, is it obfuscates the coding, the tough stuff, the nitty-gritty. Frankly, a lot of what we don't want to be spending our time doing, even if we can. That's what tech, that's what connecting these things and these endpoints offers, is an easier way to do things that we don't need to be wasting our time doing.
So I'm going to play with the if this then group. Is that what's going to happen here?
No, there's a business API integration for Alexa, so you actually can onboard like 1,000 devices with your voice in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Pretty nice for, folks
Okay.
that would take them literally weeks to do before.
Steve, you agree with this?
How many vendors in this room have lost a deal because your potential client said that they wanted to do it themselves or internally? Damn right. That's our issue. And we're vendors. How do we get that to change? They either have to implode themselves in whatever project they're working or POC that they're doing, which is why we've seen the Cisco number of 60% of all POCs in IoT fail. They're going to have to experience failure and feel the pain of how difficult it is to do things in this world of IoT before they come to us as vendors and realize that we know what the hell we're talking about.
Hey, Steve, can I
Yes,
add
sir.
something on top of that? 'Cause I
Absolutely.
agree completely with that. How many people out here have actually won business because an enterprise tried to do it themselves and failed? Right? How many of those vendors out there?
There you go.
I
agree.
think that's even more hands.
I absolutely. That's where I was headed. Thank you.
And maybe they succeeded creating a siloed solution for that one problem, but they probably didn't realize it could be used in other applications, changing workflows, changing processes, and so maybe that's where the platform solutions come in from the vendors.
But they're confused. When you got 700 platforms, these guys are getting inundated
Yeah.
with crap, and they're trying to figure out the difference and why I should pay.
And now you add blockchain
Yes.
to it too.
I'm not going that way.
We'll hold
We're going
that
back to
for
Bitcoin?
If we've got 25 minutes left on the clock, we'll go look at
It says
blockchain.
34, Carl.
Yeah. So do we have questions from the audience? Okay, back to this whole thing of can I buy into IT versus ops as being a real discussion? I mean, shouldn't IT by now understand what ops is talking about? I mean, I feel like when
Well,
people tell me this,
The challenge, I think the threat's more so the opposite, where operations doesn't need, care, want to know what is happening across the room in some cases. It's like if there's something that, if I'm responsible for getting a certain number of products off the line with a certain P&L, and I know that this off-the-shelf solution is going to do it with pretty much zero effort, it's attractive because I don't have necessarily the same responsibilities for security and all these other things that the rest of the organization does. That's why it's important to not just communicate, but also collaborate through a lot of this.
Yeah, just to echo that, when you talk to plant managers, I mean, they run their own P&L essentially. Their job is
Totally.
to produce for that plant. And if you look at a company or an enterprise that has 60 different plants and they all have different ways that they do things in those plants, trying to update across all of those plants is a challenge within itself. Trying to bring in, it's almost cultural in the sense when you think about IT and OT. So an operations engineer, and trying to bring them into the room to understand how that data can be shared and what's the protection and what's the exposure, for example, in a refinery, right?
Okay.
So I've got a refinery in Joliet, Illinois. That thing blows up, half that town's gone. There's a lot of protection that has to occur in that environment to ensure that that data stays on-prem, for example.
As well as chain of custody for that data in the event that something does go wrong,
Exactly.
so there is accountability.
And so when you start putting in the business factors, the IoT story sounds great and it can promise a lot, but I still have to run my day-to-day. And how does that interrelate and what does that look like?
And
Akshay, go ahead.
And we're seeing that even in the telcos. I mean, that many of us have worked in the telco environment originally. CIO team is separate from the CTO team. You got engineering over here. You got, even within the CIO organization, it's the OSS team typically was separate from the BSS, separate from the AIN or application group. Well, most enterprises are segmented too. So your organizational aspects that you mentioned, there's a chasm that we have to cross, and eventually we'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, there's also some very actionable.
I think James
Go
wanted
ahead.
to say something.
IT versus OT, or IT meets OT, is a pretty simplistic view. Because it's not just that. I mean, for crying out loud, it could be the product development guy within an organization that's trying to create something new. It could be the chief compliance officer that's covering his ass. It could be the management team needing to roll out and transform their entire organization. Putting out a manifesto the way that GE did to transform itself to a digital age. So just saying IT, OT, you're losing a lot of the aspects.
Definitely.
So
Okay, Brian?
I forget what I was going to say before, but I can roll with the GE thing. I think GE is interesting. Again, we were talking about, I think engines were mentioned, aviation. With their new LEAP jet engines, they're 3D printing parts within the engine itself. Trouble is, it takes so long to do all the testing and stuff. There's this big gap between when they need to invest in the technology to actually do this 3D printing and what it will do to their balance sheet in the near term. Even though they have this really great service model that's been talked about a lot, they would lose a ton of money on every engine they produce to the extent that it takes the payback periods like in excess of 10 years. With this new engine or this new process, they're actually making money on the engines and they're making money on the service. But again, because they have this obligation near term to make sure things look pretty, they're having a tough time implementing it. So when there is even an attractive ROI, if your partners aren't there with you to help, I could see a scenario where maybe the LEAP engines are fronted for a period of time and they do some funny things with accounting to make it work. But again, that's not something that's necessarily common practice, but the point is that there are these large movements occurring where a large company like GE will say, okay, this is where I want to be in 5 years, Dell, Intel, Apple, you name it. This is where I want to be in 5 years. These are the partners or the companies I currently work with, have SLAs with. I'm going to reach out. Can you guys help get me here? These are the milestones you need to meet. No? Okay, I'm gonna go to the next best one. And they're using their market stature to do that. The threat is all these other things like blockchain and low power wide area, LoRa, so forth.
They would have made more money had they kept NBC and CNBC and done events and media and entertainment.
So now, you came to it, I didn't want to touch it, but let's go with it. So, all 6 of you, give me a use case for blockchain and IoT. Or give me a, Carl, go away, you crazy maniac. James, you want to start us off?
I'm protected by an NDA, I can't discuss it.
Oh, okay. Akshay,
Well, I just got my certificate on blockchain yesterday, so thank you, Carl.
very nice.
I think we're going to change the entire supply chain. The linear sequential workflows of the past will get into more of a distributed concurrent model where with blockchain, the distributed ledger architecture can lend itself towards sharing analytics in real time, sharing. It doesn't have to be cryptocurrency. It could just be sharing information. The farmer farming the seeds, planting the seeds, selling his cargo or her cargo to Cargill, who then sells it to Cisco, but Cisco Foods, the SYSCO, who then distributes it to the restaurant, and then the restaurant then sells it to you as a consumer. Well, if you have feedback, oh, I like organic food, or I like non-GMO, or the vegetarian food that we had, which was great at lunch. How does that farmer find out about it until 6 months later if you go through the sequential processes of the past? Now with blockchain, we could have a distributed ledger, distributed policies, all encrypted, all secure, with smart contracts, and the right people can find out in real time as it happens. So I think that could be a revolutionary change in the workflows, migrating to newer workflows of the future.
Okay, Steve?
I think it's inevitable that we're going to have blockchain involved in the IoT industry. I think it's going to be difficult to figure out who that is leading that charge. Which one of us within the vendor ecosystem is the one that would step up to do that? Is that a carrier? Is that a hardware manufacturer, software manufacturer, platform provider? So I think that still is yet to be determined. But functionally, if you look at what blockchain is built for, it fits perfectly into what we're doing within IoT for data information.
I don't know this answer. Before you guys answer, I honestly don't know the answer to this question. But with Bitcoin, as the coins keep getting done, as you get to later, like it's at 95% now of the mining done, the computational issues become more complex to the point that it becomes very onerous to do. So if we do bill of lading blockchain, are we going to end up in a situation where after the third, 100th vendor touches something that all of a sudden we're processing the crap out of this? I don't know the answer, but I'm curious if anyone does. But
that's a
go
great
ahead.
question.
I've got quantum, but go ahead.
Bitcoin and blockchain aren't the same thing.
I know that part.
So that's a big thing you need to step away from, is tying something like
cryptocurrency
the
function.
cryptocurrency portion of it
Yeah,
to the
talk about Lightning
portion.
Network and all these other things too. So what's gonna happen there? Quantum, keep an eye on quantum. IBM's got a 49 qubit computer. They're working with about a dozen companies. This year looking at the near-term business case for SMB type implementations for this technology that isn't actually commercially available, but they're on track to do so within the visible or foreseeable future. So if we were to look at, say, 5 years from now, assume that all of the Bitcoin or blockchain and so forth has been mined to some extent, maybe processing is getting really hard. Really neat thing about quantum is we're talking about trinary rather than binary processing. So in the ability to convert from one to the other and back makes this parallel processing actually possible. So quantum has, in my understanding and belief, is that quantum has a very direct relevance to the future of blockchain should they all be able to get on the same page.
Okay, back to Alex. You got it?
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to what you had said around supply chain and use kind of the seed to table story, I would look at parts tracking in the supply chain around like an airport, for example. Today, many parts are exchanged amongst the airlines as they're going to fix these different engines, and being able to track that and the usage of that part and where that is and how that exchange hands, the technology seems to apply there. I would echo some of the thoughts, though, that it is early stage. I think it's very early on, and I think that getting too much hype about it kind of creates a disillusionment.
And because we're such an early stage, I think it creates, a lot of excitement for everybody. We all are trying to figure this out and how, IoT and blockchain can work together. And, we will see, that sort of to collaborate as we go over time. But how that occurs, we're still trying to figure that all out.
Anywhere there.
Okay, you're relieving yourself of your NDNA right now, right?
Yeah, because I'm not going to go into anything really
Okay.
specific. I'm just going to say some high-level things. One is identity, right? Systems of record. The supply chain issues here, but what about mediation, right? And especially in low power wide area and also short range networks and mediating over those things. No one's looking at how do we cross-pollinate across various networks. We talk about HetNet, but we haven't figured out how to monetize HetNet.
And now we come to my other favorite problem child. So, since we're in heterogeneous networks, can someone tell me what 5G is, please? Go ahead, Akshay.
So 5G is unlike all the other Gs where you had a new transcoding algorithm, going from analog to digital and to CDMA eventually, and then OFDM. 5G basically is still LTE based. However, we're going to now apply it architecturally in a different mode over different frequencies. Could be licensed and unlicensed spectrum, which is unique. Could be low frequencies as well as very high frequencies, 28 gigahertz trials and beyond. And so we're starting to see new frequencies being leveraged, but also architecturally. So we talked about HetNets, but even this cloud RAN architecture or mobile edge computing, the M-Cord initiative, with the mobile central office being re-architected as a nano data center closer to the edge. So the old CO switches from Nortel, Lucent, Siemens are going to get replaced with micro data centers at every main street of every downtown, of every area code we're in. And that's where the carriers become relevant again. A Verizon and AT&T, who have all this space, literally in downtown offices, can now use this for network slicing on demand. So architecturally, we're going to have not only bandwidth on demand, multiple frequencies, but also a slice of the CPU horsepower that we need for whatever function we're going to use it for. So it's a whole new paradigm shift, and I think this will lend itself towards all kinds of newer applications that we haven't even thought of yet.
Yes.
God, Governor Lamar, you just talk pretty. Anyway.
Did you hear that? Somebody just dropped a press release. 6G's around the corner.
6G
I can't wait for 6G so I can use that to transport my body through the 6G world back to where I belong, which is the penthouse in hell.
Okay, so just to complete the sense of humor, I want you guys to know this was the one reason I thought about buying Mickey Mouse ears, because I figured if I had Mickey Mouse ears on, I could say that I was actually doing micro beam forming while I was talking to you all. So, Brian, you wanted to speak, I think.
I was going to amplify the importance of network slicing because that allows you to tie split billing to all of these applications that are not yet monetizing the data going through them.
Okay.
I'll add, one, network determinism. So when you think about Ethernet in manufacturing environments, being able to determine which data packets are transported where and kind of which lane of the highway, being able to have that function in a wireless network with 5G is an important aspect.
So it feels to me like we're talking about the radio frequency, but we're actually talking about session management. Am I wrong on this?
Yeah, I mean, also I think to an extent we're talking about the application optimization theory to real world technologies. So what we might, I think I mentioned in years past something about language. We never have a world where we could use the optimal phrase to convey something and also be digested. Those are the kinds of things that I think do become possible when we are able to tie monetary dollar to this bifurcation data as well as the resulting services.
Okay.
That's exciting to me.
Go ahead.
But so what you have in your bag.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, speaking of which, okay, so Akshay, you took us down it's LTE baby route, okay? But almost every carrier I know and several other people see other opportunities like low PAN, LP-WAN, right?
Yep.
So where do they fit in? Is this, why do we need all of these things? And is there yet another one coming down the pike here, like
Two cans in a
Microsoft is
string.
fighting now for white space back again? So anybody got any thoughts there?
Two cans in a string.
Yeah,
I think
that's how we
thing's
started.
a thing, isn't it?
Or the smoke, the TPs with the smoke. Eventually, we're going to communicate with whatever means possible that makes economic sense, technical sense, and so we're going to have different protocols for different applications. And so there's not going to be one protocol or one size fits all, because that's how we came from. And now we're going to have, in a way, and I saw Sri Ramachandran walking around there. He's the inventor of the session border controller.
Right.
I'm waiting to see when is the IoT session border controller going to be created that figures out that mediation that you talked about to mediate between the different air interfaces and the different protocols based on what the session or the application or what the context is that you need it for.
Yeah, I would add to that. I mean, I think I see processing like computing, and I see networks as enablers for transporting data to wherever it needs to be for that application and context. So once I figure that out, then I can decide, what are the specs that I need from the compute and network standpoint.
Sure. Okay, so the first ringer question.
So I work for a very large software company. Where should we be focusing? I've heard a kind of mixed message here between integration. Don't look at data for now. Where's the money? Is it the application? Is it the connectivity? Is it the...
What kind of software are you making?
Big cloud.
Big cloud software.
So let's just pretend to be...
So we can't.
Carl, can you read it to us?
Yeah, I was going to say, what the hell's her badge say, Carl?
Amazon Prime.
They're Oracle, for God's sake. Boy, do I have to...
Oh God, our Oracle.
So,
Where should we focus? Where's the money?
from
I
a
think the
software
money's-
standpoint? From a software standpoint?
Steve,
From
go
a
first.
software standpoint.
I think the money's going to be in the holistic service, the connecting of the dots. It's not going to be one siloed solution. So it's at CES, what impressed me about the Samsung announcement of Bixby, it was thinking beyond just a refrigerator with a big screen on it. It was the refrigerator with a big screen to see your front door, people coming in, seeing your baby, crying in the next room, seeing everything, and connecting all your appliances with your TVs in a refrigerator, all holistically. So I think that's where the software will be headed towards, is not just a siloed solution, it's thinking out of the box, literally. Exactly, the integration and then managing it as a service. Maybe with security layered on, maybe with surveillance or other applications.
I think you can't get away with just selling software. I think you have to be able to do some true value add on top of what you sell. The value add has got to be sellable in a managed services scenario where people are saying, oh, for another $10 a month I get this, and another $5 a month I get this. So you build your recurring revenue stream model, which is where this is all heading, but you're also solving more and more the dilemmas and the issues that our end users are looking for you to solve with your software.
So
Go ahead, James.
throw away your preconceived notions, ARPUs, and price lists. IoT is about bits, billions, and cents. And we got to get away from dollars, millions, and ARPUs. Whether it's ARPU on the software, ARPU on the network connectivity, and the carriers need to learn this as well. Their most expensive costs are spectrum and tower fees, and it's not about that. We got to get away from that and start taking a look at how we enable bits, billions, at cents.
Maybe
to
from
get this to
ARPU, we
scale.
go to RPIT, where it's the thing, it's not the user.
I always thought, from a carrier standpoint, they can take a look at dollars per kilohertz of spectrum that they've invested in, but then that puts them on a level playing field with guys that are doing low power wide area that are not buying spectrum. So.
Any other thought? Go ahead.
Yeah, just to add a couple comments. James, you had mentioned earlier, I can't even get the data off the device, right? I think one of the things that's overlooked right now is data management, parsing large machine logs around unstructured time series data. No, everyone's overlooking that. They're saying, oh, well, I'm just going to give you the cool app. How do I actually ingest the data to provide the service? Yes, you need to have the end-to-end solution. Yes, you need to position it so the customer can use it, but you need to actually think about the data and how it's being ingested and leveraged in that environment.
Yeah, I think it's because it's not really it's not just software we're talking about. Software is very much a component of the solution sale, and a solution sale is about value pricing, really. And that's why, as James mentioned, a lot of what we're talking about is pretty antiquated. Or a lot of the systems that we're working through need to be kicked in the teeth.
And if you want the real answer, I'll tell you later.
For a small fee. So we've got another question here.
Yes, I do.
Here on the conference was a lot of talk about security and mostly security between bad guys and the good guys. But I would like to ask you the fact that the good guys are keeping us as a final users, for example, on the very short belt in practice because they have a full control on our data and all of these things. So what about, except Etsy that is making this privacy procedure should be done or is ongoing here to protect final users from the good guys, not from the bad guys?
So are we basically hurting ourselves on the security front in the way we're presenting it? When you guys were talking, one thing that hit me, which is totally antithetical to this, but right on the money in some ways, which is structured data, right? Always good to see, right? Unstructured data. I wish to God I could convince the people who have my bills to not send me a PDF that has the printout of it, but actually the raw data that I could actually utilize and do something with. So when we're looking at the security, are we making ourselves so secure for protection from the outside that we're actually hurting the end user? Is that a fair statement? Nobody's going to answer this one. Obviously, they weren't the ones who raised their hands as security experts at the show.
Well, no, but we just saw that. Memory management on the Intel and ARM processors led to the meltdown and the Scepter bugs that we've got right now, where it's unstructured data, but that unstructured data could have a gold mine in it. It could have your keystrokes for your password. And who knows, a rogue IT person, or even a genuine IT person, doesn't know that they're being hacked or with a phishing episode or whatever. And so it's hard to determine who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, because the good guy could still be good, but doesn't know they've been hacked and someone's mimicking them as the IT manager and could get into these devices. And we've seen a lot of these hacks that have happened lately.
Yeah, what's being described here, by the way, is one of the main attractions of blockchain, is that mutually aligned incentive structure that gets third parties invested in the process between two other parties that are anonymous. So any scenario where it's beneficial to share third-party data, we can think of certainly mobile operator space, healthcare for sure. Think of unique diseases that are not necessarily known. But we're talking about here some of the edge. I think it's a lot of what we're talking about here has to do with the impact of edge on the organization. And the basic premise here, we're looking at edge computing, is just to ship code to the edge rather than data. The core, it's more efficient, makes more sense, and all that good stuff. Ultimately, those are just words, unless you're actually doing something different. There's a lot of rugged edge hardware, but if you're not doing something with that data, or more importantly, doing something with if you're not actioning it, taking only what you need from that, with potentially the option to augment it later down the line, you're selling yourself short.
And we heard about ICOs being hacked. I mean, we think blockchain, Bitcoin, it's all encrypted and it's secure, but the organization can still be hacked. The digital certifying body that they get the certificates from can be hacked. And so now, again, we have to think holistically, end to end.
And I think your question about protecting from the good guys, there isn't a board that we ever speak to that has nothing to do about good guys. It is all about bad guys. So no matter what we talk about on the protection of data for the good guys, our whole goal is to protect it from the bad guys. And the problem we have is that in our IoT space, there are companies that we talk to that deploy 3, 4 different IoT data security schemes within a single application or a single deployment. Like, how the hell do you manage all that? So I think we have another issue as relates to security, which is which one's the way to go? Which layer do I use? I mean, Ken's discussion this morning about Cradlepoint's idea. I mean, it's now, how many more are we going to use? So I think that's another bigger issue.
So we're still in January, so I get the benefit of taking advantage of that. So I want to end with each of you telling us your big prediction for 2018. So when we get together in 2019, we'll verify what we said. So Alex, I'm going to start with you because you're slinking down like you don't want to answer it.
Can't wait.
That'll
All right,
teach you.
so there aren't a lot of product manufacturers in the room, but my big prediction for 2018 is the destruction and construction of value in the product manufacturer community. And what I mean by that is that there's this wave of technology, and you have end customers demanding digital solutions, and you have vendors providing digital technologies, and you have these poor little product manufacturers sitting in the middle saying, how the hell am I supposed to take that, turn that into a service and make money? There will be those who do, who succeed, and those who fail. And that's where you'll see the destruction of value in the market.
Okay, Adam?
When you think about growth sectors of IoT in 2018, you think about all of this data that IoT is collecting and how, as I mentioned earlier, we're setting that up to the cloud, and how edge computing is gaining popularity, and how that's going to be a growth sector for us. And because of all that data that's throwing off, there's created the need for artificial intelligence, in IoT and machine learning, and I think those are going to continue to be growth sectors that we see in IoT moving forward in 18.
Blockchain, low power, wide area, microservices.
Okay, let's go Steve next.
I'm going to take two pieces of that. One is, I think the top three issues that we're dealing with this year are going to be education, security, and systems integration. We have to address those issues in order for this industry to continue to grow. And I do believe that we are going to see this year the collapse of numerous companies within the IoT space that didn't have a good business plan to begin with. And so we're going to see consolidation, and we're going to see some companies folding within the space because the upward turn that they thought they were all going to be making money at doing is not going to happen.
Akshay?
So Sigfox becomes the WiMAX again. We're going to have real 5G trials, that are real with AR, VR, or newer applications. Blockchain becomes more mainstream with IoT, with supply chain. We're going to see some more successes beyond what we just heard yesterday. And I think, AR and VR is going to become part of the show eventually. It's not quite here yet, but I think there's going to be a lot of connecting of the dots with AR, VR.
Okay, James?
Man, you beat the hell out of Sigfox. They're not even here to protect themselves.
Actually, they are, but we'll ignore that fact.
Yes.
So Sigfox,
Well, there's an image.
will die in the U.S., will live on until they run out of money in Europe. I mean, they've really got some things going on over there. I say Ingenue dies. But no,
The sign was taken down. I noticed that.
to quote Steve, we are going to see massive consolidation in this space, right?
yeah.
Look to your left and look to your right, and one of the companies is going to be gone. I mean, massive consolidation, huge acquisition.
So exchange business cards with each other, just in case.
Give them your Gmail account instead.
Your LinkedIn.
No,
Okay.
I'm serious about that. We're going to see a record year for acquisitions as well. Private equity money is out there in full force. And I think the last time you asked this question, I said one unicorn makes it, right? And Jasper was acquired by Cisco.
Right.
One unicorn dies. We had a wearable unicorn die.
Yep.
I see two more unicorns on the horizon.
Well, what about
And
C3
one
IoT
of them
and
will
uptake?
be a
That's
blockchain.
a great comment. That's a
What was
great
that, Adam?
C3 IoT and uptake are both unicorns in the IoT space that are continuing to grow revenue, and
Yeah.
are
And winning deals
Yeah.
on a consistent basis. I agree.
And pivoting business models.
And I agree
because
with
they don't
James.
really
It is
have
going to be
That's right.
It is going to be a big year for
they're-
M&A and
they're-
IoT.
But that's only because their original business model, they have changed.
Right, they have. They've adapted.
They've adapted.
To their credit.
I would absolutely agree with that. I would agree. And I know there was one question last year. I know we have five. We
Yeah,
probably
go ahead.
don't.
Go
One
for it.
question you asked all of us last year was, who owns the data?
Right.
And I don't know if that was important enough to ask, because this year seems to be like, who the hell owns the data in our IoT space? And we go back to GE, and who owns the data of the jet engine when they don't own the engine?
Yeah, you ask three people from any company, and it's going to be somebody else owns. I own the data. He owns the data.
So how do we
they own the
monetize
data.
if we don't know who owns the data?
Yeah.
I thought that's what GDPR was all about. That's how we're going to monetize it all. That's my next vendor on the net event, is
There you go.
GDPR. Anyone else want to take on the ownership of data? for a
Yeah.
moment?
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, with cryptocurrency, data is currency and currency is data.
I'm going to, well, processing is going to be the new currency with that. But I'm going to say who owns it is enough of a question. I think it's one that can and should be asked throughout. Because who owns the problem, who owns the solution, who owns the data definitely matters. But finding that throat to choke or finding the right partner to support, to succeed, to prioritize is just as important, I think, as these little details. So who owns it throughout is what I would ask.
Yeah.
And the last answer, go ahead, Alex.
Anybody heard of Autonomo? No?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a data exchange platform.
Yeah.
So data's produced, it's anonymized, and then people can buy access to that data to learn about products and different equipment in a city or in transportation. So when we talk about who owns it, you could eventually see data exchange platforms kind of enabling a Spotify-like environment where anybody who has access to that community could have share of it.
Okay, and I was wrong. James, the last answer.
Go ahead.
Is it consumer or is it enterprise data? Because there are going to be two different values placed on that and two different ways that those are approached.
That's right.
Creating an identity management system of what that data is, because my identity becomes my connected device, my house, my car, my phone, my connected device is part of my identity, which makes me identity. So I think identity management around that is going to be key. And I think we're going to see the federal government get involved because CPG companies are wanting to basically open up that access to data and have access to some of this data.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it on smart cities deployments right now, where everybody's arguing within the smart city deployment ecosystem on who the hell owns the data. Is it the university? Is it the city? Is it IBM? Is it AT&T? It's incredible. And then the other thing is, my good friend John Ellis came up with this book this past year that said we should never pay for our car. That our car should be provided to us free by Ford because of the data that's associated with that car and the sellability of the data that Ford will sell your data from your car for. So we should be getting those cars for free.
It's an automobile device.
Right. And the data is more valuable than the $38,000 we pay for a car.
Well, at least I like the
60%
last
of
name
Fords
you
aren't
used
connected.
there. So with that all said, please give the team a round of applause.